Welcome to Upon Further Review.
Upon further review.
And in this edition of Upon Further Review, we'll be going over the Thursday night game. And this will be between the San Diego Chargers and the Denver Broncos. And you can catch that October 23rd at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. And that will be simulcast on the NFL Network and CBS. So these two AFC West division rivals are going at it. And entering this game, the Chargers are 5-2 and the Broncos are 5-1. So these two teams are battling it out for first place in the AFC West. And the Chargers started off with that loss on Monday Night Football as part of that doubleheader on Monday night there in Week 1 as they lost by just 1 point to the Arizona Cardinals. They then won 5 straight as they hosted the Seahawks, and then they went to Buffalo, and then they hosted Jacksonville and the Jets, and then they went to Oakland and they won all those games. But then they hosted Kansas City last week and they lost by just 3 points. So both of the losses for San Diego are for a combined 4 points. They lost by 1 to the Cardinals and 3 to Kansas City. So if it wasn't for 4 little points, the Chargers would be undefeated. But they are not. They're 5-2. And the Broncos started off by beating the Indianapolis Colts in Week 1, and then they beat Kansas City in Week 2. Both those games were in Denver. Then they went on the road and they lost to the Seahawks in Seattle. That was their only loss of the season thus far, and that was an overtime loss. So their only loss was by that 6 points in overtime. Otherwise, they'd be undefeated. They then had their bye week. They hosted the Cardinals, and they beat up on them really bad. A really good Cardinals defense, too, and they took advantage of them, just really exposed them. Then they went to New York and they beat the Jets. And then they hosted the San Francisco 49ers last week and they beat up on them too, as they are just, beating up on some good teams. And they really have a pretty impressive record when you look at it, is they've faced nothing but good teams, really. Sans the Jets, even though the Jets have a good defense. So even though their record is pretty bad, So now, here we are, Thursday night against San Diego. Division rivals, these two teams play each other really tight. And if you look back at last year, Denver beat San Diego in San Diego, and San Diego beat Denver in Denver. And if memory serves, that was also a Thursday night game, which makes it kind of tempting to possibly go with San Diego, although I am going with Denver. It is in Mile High, and the Broncos have been one of the best teams for sure. Let's look inside the numbers. And when it comes to passing proficiency in 2014 in passing yards per game, the San Diego Chargers are number 6 in the NFL in passing yards per game. The Broncos are number 3. Then we look at passing defense. The Chargers are number 3 in yards allowed through the air. The Broncos are 18. So you got to give the edge to San Diego in the passing game. I know that's a tough call right there to ever give anyone the edge over Peyton Manning when it comes to the passing. But when we look at the defensive numbers, San Diego's defense is right there, matches up with Denver really good. That doesn't mean Denver won't have a good game. It doesn't mean Peyton won't have a good game. But it just means if you look at the numbers, the Chargers are in a better position. Phillip Rivers going against that Denver secondary that has been allowing yards through the air. And he's been putting up big numbers as well. So just on paper, the edge goes to San Diego. Although I know in most people's hearts and in their heads they would say Peyton. But if you look at the numbers say San Diego has the edge when it comes to passing the ball in this game. Then we look at the running attacks of these two teams, and these two teams cannot run the ball to save their lives. Of course, the Chargers, a real big part of that is the injuries they've suffered. Ryan Matthews was injured early in the season. Danny Woodhead lost for the year. Donald Brown even has gone down. Now they're with Brandon Oliver, and Brandon Oliver has actually been doing really good. He shows some signs of hope for San Diego. He's been putting up good numbers. He's rushed for 100 yards in weeks 5 and 6. Not last week, though. But on the season, the Chargers are 29th in the NFL in rushing yards per game. So although a lot of people think they can run the ball, the numbers say different. And of course, a lot of that has to do with their injuries. If they, had a healthy, backs, Ryan Matthews was back there, it'd be a different story, but it is what it is. And the Broncos, they're 25th when it comes to rushing yards. Of course, both these teams are so pass heavy that's part of the reason why they're so bad at running the ball. They don't really run the ball. How are you going to be good at running the ball if you don't run the ball? How are you going to get yards running the ball if you don't really run the ball? And they both just love to pass. The Broncos are missing no Sean Moreno. Monty Ball has not been getting it done, and so now we got Hillman taking over, and he's been actually showing some life there in the running game. He's actually already, in his short time in the backfield for Denver, has already passed Monty Ball on the season in yards. So he's actually equaled his touches. So Hillman's been looking good. He just got to protect the ball. He's kind of fumble prone. But let's look at the run defense. And the Chargers are 13th in the NFL in yards allowed on the ground per game. And the Broncos are number 3. So the Broncos have an excellent run defense. Of course, part of that has to do with the fact that they're always playing with the lead for the most part. And so then teams are forced to pass and don't really have much of an opportunity to run against them. And if they try, they've got, some pretty good defenders that stop them. DeMarcus Ware, just to name one. So when it comes to running the ball, the edge actually goes to Denver. So Denver has the edge when it comes to running. Now let's look at the points for and against. And when it comes to scoring, the Chargers are the 9th most proficient scoring team in the NFL per game. They put up the 9th most points on the scoreboard. And the Broncos are number 1. Of course they are. Peyton Manning throwing all those touchdowns, breaking Brett Favre's record. He's not having the year he had last year, but he's still having a year that anyone would be envious of, and is definitely looking to go back to the Pro Bowl. As I said, they're number 1 when it comes to putting up points on the scoreboard. Then we look at the defense of these two teams in terms of points. The Chargers are number 3 in points allowed, and the Broncos are number 5. So they're both really good at preventing other teams from scoring, and the edge has to go to Denver. They're number 1, number 5 against, versus number 9, number 3 against, edge Denver. So Denver has the edge in the statistical categories. It might be a slight edge in certain areas, and then if you actually look, the one edge that San Diego has is in the passing game, and then that's on paper. When you actually consider how is it going to be played out on the field, that even more so goes towards the advantage of the Broncos. And the thing at this game is, Denver's MO is to get out to an early lead, and then they kind of sit on their lead. The Chargers, though, they're a team that can come back on you. And Phillip Rivers is no stranger to the fourth quarter comeback. So Denver's got to play a full 60 minutes. They got to keep it on them. They got to keep it full throttle, keep putting points on the board one way or another if they want to beat San Diego, because San Diego's a team, if they fall asleep at the wheel with the lead there in Denver, the Chargers will come up from behind and possibly pass them on their way to the victory. I am picking Denver, though, but I would not be surprised to see Phillip Rivers pull something off in this game. They did beat Denver last year in Denver, so it's possible. Although I think that Peyton Manning and the Broncos should come off of this short week, and they should have a lot of success. They didn't have to actually play much of that game against the Niners. They were blowing them out so bad. They pulled most of their starters early, and Peyton was watching them take the victory formation at the end of the game from the sideline. So, he's well rested, not really banged up from that game, and Peyton should put up some, big numbers. Of course, the Chargers got a good, defense, and it will be fun to watch to see how it all plays out. But the Chargers, they're going to struggle on the ground. They're going to need Brandon Oliver to put up some numbers. Last week, he was looking good, but he just didn't get the touches. He was averaging over 4 yards per carry, I think like 4.5, but he only had 67 yards. So they say he just wasn't getting the touches. So they keep the ball in his hands, and that's really the way they got to beat him. Of course, they're more likely to be able to take advantage of them through the passing game. They're going to need, to do the classic connection, the most prolific quarterback to tight end connection of all time. That's Rivers to Gates. Of course, Peyton and Julius Thomas will have something to say about that, as we could end up seeing a battle of tight ends, seeing, which tight end will put up the most touchdowns, right? Would not be shocked to see that going back and forth. Rivers to Gates, Manning to Thomas, But of course, he's also got another guy named Thomas, and that's Demarius. And Demarius, if he has a big game, that'll go a long way towards them winning too. Like I said, the Chargers got a really good defense. They did shut out the Jets. They've actually been, keeping teams to pretty low scores as it is. But this is definitely the toughest challenge they've faced so far this season, without a doubt. I mean, they did beat Seattle, but other than that, they haven't beaten a team anywhere near the Broncos' caliber of competitiveness. And the Broncos, they've been facing nothing but tough teams. I mean, they went against the Colts, the Chiefs, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and the Niners already. I mean, yes, the Jets, but not every team can be a playoff team, right? Not that all those teams necessarily will make the playoffs, but they all have the potential to. And they're all very competitive. So Denver's been looking impressive against top competition. And I don't really see any reason to think that they won't put up another W on the board and get a win there in Denver on Thursday night. I said it should be close, it should be exciting, it should come down to the end. Of course, if Denver, they get out to that big lead and the Chargers, play from behind, they can mount that comeback, but if Denver keeps on scoring, then this game could end up being a double-digit win for the Broncos, possibly. Either way, I think it'll come down to the end, though. I think it'll be a close game. So I think Denver wins. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Very interested to hear your opinions, to read them, as it were. I'm not really going to hear your opinions. Maybe I'll hear them, I'll say them out loud, and then I'll be like, I'll hear myself say your comment. But I'll read your opinions. So leave those below, and I will definitely read them, and I will do my very best to respond if it is something that seems that you want me to respond to. If it doesn't seem you want me a response, if it's just some kind of comment that don't really need a response, then I'm not going to respond necessarily. But if you want a response, I will open a dialogue with you. So go ahead and leave a comment. Also, if you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit the like button. How else would we know you enjoyed the show if you don't hit that like button? And if you want more of this content, go ahead and subscribe, because we bring you upon further reviews for each and every single game, each and every single week, along with recaps for every single game in the NFL. And this is the Wedge. This is part of the Wedge. It's also Upon Further Review. We do the Thursday night Upon Further Review as part of the Wedge. And that's our weekly show where we do our quick picks, fantasy fortune picks, and the weekly rewind. We're also covering the World Series. And we've been doing the baseball playoffs all the way leading up to the World Series here, as it's now tied up at 1-1 between the Royals and the Giants, heading back to well, not heading back, but heading to San Francisco for Game 3. So keep an eye out for that. We also do some college football, although with the World Series and all the baseball going on, it's been tough to keep up with the college. But we will be getting back to the college football, and we will be covering the college football playoffs once that approaches. So keep an eye out for all of that, and thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a great day, and have a great weekend, and enjoy all of the sports.